one of the most important questions people can ask themselves are, what assumptions am I making right now? People assume they know more than they do. People assume there are things holding them back that aren't really there. People assume things will play out a certain way, but they don't know until they try. We tell ourselves a lot of stories all the time.
That's where I was going with that.
And so I'm in my coaching practice, I'm very, very careful to check people's assumptions and find out what stories are we telling ourselves and how do we know if they're true and how do we find out. And it's amazing how quickly you can get people to move forward, stop holding themselves back once you use the right framing.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where I talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, athletes, and local Winnipeg celebrities. I get to learn who they are and how they think, and I get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and in their businesses. On today's podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome Amy Oliver, a dynamic entrepreneur and business owner. She has advised and coached hundreds of healthcare leaders, teams, and business owners to drive high performance within the health and social services industries. As a sought-after keynote speaker on healthcare leadership and social wellness, she excels in driving organizational behavior and leadership. With an MBA focused on organizational leadership and health administration, she's also a licensed pharmacist, certified leadership coach, and PMP project management professional. Amy's dedication to entrepreneurship, strategy development, and leadership has earned her multiple awards and recognition as an emerging leader by the Governor General of Canada. Amy, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
That's a mouthful. Well done.
Thanks.
There's a lot there. And I think that I probably only scratched the surface just a little bit. So, so let's first give everyone listening a quick little breakdown of Amy Oliver and Co.
Cool.
What you do, who you do it for, and how you help them.
Yeah. So the company that I'm running right now, Amy Oliver & Co., is essentially there to help healthcare providers, healthcare leaders figure out how to do everything else but healthcare. So, if you're a physiotherapist or a pharmacist or physician, dentist, any of them, you go to school forever and you become a real master of your clinical craft. And then you get out into the real world and you need to find, property or an office. You need to sign leases. You need to start looking at financial reports. You need to hire staff. You need to manage people. And there's all these other complex parts that you've learned absolutely nothing about in the 12 or 15 years of school that you went to. So that's sort of where we come in. We are there to mentor, to advise, to project manage, to really support, lots of hands-on support for people that are in healthcare fields trying to navigate all of these other pieces. And their time is usually better spent with their patients and doing really important work in our communities. That's no surprise to anybody, how important the role is of a healthcare worker. And so we are there to make sure all of the other pieces really come together really well so they can do their best work.
Okay. Healthcare professional and social wellness, that covers pretty much everything. Like, how many modalities or how many things does that cover?
Yeah. So in terms of community healthcare, so we don't do a lot of work within public sector. So hospitals, for example, a little bit, but not a ton. Mostly we work with anyone who owns a practice out in the community across all different healthcare industries and across all the provinces. So we're right from coast to coast now. And then in terms of social wellness, that will be sort of anything that touches health and wellness. So it might be a nonprofit. We do a little bit in education, things like that. So, if it contributes to overall wellness in some way, I'm really interested in social enterprise and social innovation. So things like community kitchens and organizations for newcomers and things like that, that wouldn't be traditional healthcare, but still touch like overall wellness in a community.
Yeah. So you come in and you start attacking the business of the business with them. So all of the things other than their own specialty.
Yeah. So it falls sort of in three key areas. The first one would be around strategy. So what are you doing? If you go out to any other type of business and you ask them, what makes you special? Why should someone choose you? Whether it's, as a restaurant or as a realtor or whatever it might be, they typically have some kind of answer about what makes them a bit unique. But when you talk to people in healthcare and you say, why should they choose you to be their pharmacy, or why should you be their their veterinarian, they don't have a good answer. And the answers they give are, well, we're good at what we do. We care a lot about people or patients. And the reality is those answers are the same as the next person down the street, and they're not very unique. So we do lots of work in strategy, helping people create more niche businesses in those spaces, or maybe businesses that are more aligned with what they actually care about instead of what, the world is telling them they should be doing in healthcare. So that is our strategy piece. Our leadership piece is really around how do you lead? Leading and managing are different, right? So how do we actually lead? How do we have influence? How do we negotiate? How do we help change manage in an environment that we don't have a lot of control over? And things like that. And then operations. So my career background is largely in operations, and that's where I think things really fall off for a lot of people. And that's really that day-to-day, I know what I want to do. I know where I want to go, but I have no idea what I actually need to do day-to-day to accomplish what I'm hoping to.
Mm-hmm. I can see how a MBA in administration helps.
Yeah. So I got my MBA. I had already been working in a corporate executive position for a while, but I knew I wanted to do my own thing and wanted to solidify some of those skills. And so I, at an interesting time, decided to go back and do my MBA at night in person, and took the long scenic route. I had 2-year-old twins at home, and I was pregnant with my third kid when I thought I should go back to night school. It's a good time.
Perfect time.
And
you're not getting sleep anyways.
No, it actually turned out to be like a really great time to do it. I knocked off a lot of classes on mat leave. And it sort of turned into a bit of my social life at the same time. It was my one night a week or 2 nights a week where I would, put on real clothes and get a hot coffee, and nobody would be climbing on me. And I could
Mommy's learning.
Yeah, and talk to adults. And so it actually was a great time to do it. And when the kids are little, they go to sleep at 7, and you can actually work in the evening. If I tried to do it now, that would be a different story. But
yeah. What did you do it through?
I did it in my MBA through Asper.
Oh, okay, beautiful.
Yeah, they did it here. I really wanted to do it in person. For anybody that's thinking about an MBA, my advice is to really think about what you're doing it for. And for me, it wasn't necessarily entirely even about the education or the credentials, but a lot of it was about the networking and the ability to really learn from other people. And so an online program just wasn't going to cut it for me. And now in retrospect, being out of the program for a few years, I feel like I've, half of what I learned came from the people in the program, and half of what I learned came from the program itself.
Yeah. What is the makeup of Amy Oliver and Co?
As in people?
Size, how long you've been?
Like the pillars of our company and things like that. Yeah, so we're going on 6 years in terms of how long we've been doing it. It has changed a lot over the 6 years. So when I started, it was just me. I had been working as an executive running ops for Shoppers Drug Mart for Manitoba, Saskatchewan at the time. And my thought was, okay, how do I start my own thing where I'm providing the type of support. At the time, it was independent pharmacies in Manitoba. That was the plan when I started. So how do we start providing the type of support to independent pharmacies that you would get in a corporate or franchise environment, but while letting them keep all of the autonomy of being like a real owner? And so that was the plan. That's what I did for about the first year. Built clientele across Manitoba, and then it just sort of exploded. So it started moving to pharmacies out of province, and then with COVID, it was actually a good thing for business. Healthcare was and still is a dumpster fire coast to coast. So it was very helpful being someone who helps run healthcare during a pandemic. And also everyone's behaviors changed, and everybody started getting really comfortable going online, right? So we started learning how to adapt some of our services out of in-person to online. Everybody got Zoom and cameras and, all of the apps, and we're comfortable meeting online. And as soon as we could, do a kickoff meeting with a client in another province on Zoom in an hour, instead of spending 3 days traveling to another province and renting a space and, all those things, we were really able to grow very quickly. So, throughout COVID, it really expanded to other professions and other provinces, and we've just continued to scale since then. So most of the work that we do is consulting with healthcare practice owners.
Okay.
But I'm also an executive coach, so we do kind of a combination of coaching and consulting. The consulting is typically business owners. The coaching is business owners and also other health leaders. So we'll have, for example, physicians that maybe work at cancer care in an organization or different government, ministerial departments and things like that.
Okay.
So not practice owners, but people in higher, senior level healthcare roles. So quite a bit of that. And then lots of public speaking. So that's really exploded in the last few years. And I'm on the road all the time speaking to big groups.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. You said something, you decided you wanted to go on your own. So there's lots that we can dive into right there.
Yeah.
Let's first start with your background before, like coming out of, say, high school. Did you know what you wanted to do? What were you doing? Did you know you wanted to be a pharmacist? Was that, what was the trajectory for Amy?
Yeah, I love this. So I've always been a bit of a nerdy troublemaker.
Okay.
And so I always knew, I don't know if I always knew I wanted to be a business owner, but I always knew I wanted to be in charge or calling the shot. I don't like being told what to do. I
can feel that.
Yeah. I like efficiency. I like things to go well, but I'm also a really big picture thinker. So I'm not a sit at a desk and kind of just work away kind of person. So I actually got a job. I finished high school a little bit early, and I got a job at a pharmacy close to my house that was just hiring like a front store, like a cashier basically. Yep. And I worked full time while all my friends were finishing school. And I had sort of thought about going into healthcare. I was leaning more towards commerce. I thought I'd probably do better in business. But after working in a pharmacy by fluke, I learned, this is a real nice combination of, community service and healthcare, nerdy science stuff, and then also business. So that started, and I had some great opportunities with that pharmacy, and then decided to apply to pharmacy school. Got in and went down that journey and academically. And then almost right after I graduated, I became a franchise owner of a Shoppers Drug Mart. So I owned the Shoppers Drug Mart in Polo Park for a few years. Yeah. And that was super fun. I got to really, learn business. I was 24, multi-million-dollar store, no idea what I was doing. Like absolutely not a hot clue. My front store manager was a saint and taught me so much, but she'd been working at Shoppers Drug Mart longer than I'd been alive. Team of 55 people, huge cosmetic section. When you own a Shoppers Drug Mart, their model's a bit interesting, but in short, you have the whole store. It's not just the pharmacy. So, you have to learn retail, you have to learn cosmetics, you need to learn loss prevention. It's huge. So that was a big learning curve.
Loss prevention now is, please don't take that.
Oh, and it was wild. People would just come in with backpacks, load up with fragrance, in and out in 3 minutes, and you're down, $8,000 in perfume. So,
wow.
Anyways, so had to learn a lot of things in that role. But in my time there, actually, my favorite part of the job was having students, training new owners, and working on a lot of big different projects. So I was often a store that would pilot different things that were going to roll out across the company. And I sat on lots of internal committees and professional affairs. I ran for the board of pharmacists for Manitoba at that time, and learned that I really don't like the day-to-day. I like the big picture thinking, the big projects. And so I left that role and went corporate and did operations across Manitoba, Saskatchewan. So I had, 75 stores or something like that across the two provinces that I oversaw everything for. And that was great, but it's an enormous company and you don't have a lot of say. It's more, this is what the company's doing. Your job is to go roll it out and get everybody to comply. And if you don't, then your job is to let them know who's in charge.
You're the hammer that comes in.
Yeah, that's right. And, I had a great relationship with the owners and never had to do that really. But I did have, people who really wanted to do their own thing and they had really great ideas, but it didn't fall within the franchise model. And I just sort of decided, what if we could have the best of both worlds, and took a leap, and here we are.
What was it that kind of led to that? Was there a moment? Was there multiple things that added up? Because it's a crazy jumping off a cliff time.
Yeah.
Or were you smart enough to build a ladder to help yourself down? Like, how did you transition? How did you take that leap of faith? How did you quit?
Yeah. Okay. Well, a couple of things that I think are important to mention. Mostly I just jumped and dove right in and had no idea what I was doing. But with that being said, I had a couple of really great people in my corner, coaches and mentors that have many years in business with a lot of experience. So I had them, helping me along the way. I was in a professional dual income household, so we had a bit more comfort than a lot of people do in terms of leaving. And because I had owned a franchise in the past and exited that franchise, I had a bit of a financial cushion that allowed me to be a bit riskier. So The first year, and I was in an executive role with, nice wages and bonuses and cars and things like that. So leaving was different. But you know what? I left. I did what I wanted. I took a chance. It took me about a year to start making what I was making before, and now quite a bit more than that. So, but not without its risks. I think the biggest learning and something that I think is important for other people thinking about going out on their own is, you're constantly building your pipeline, and work doesn't come right away. So I find even now, this has been pretty consistent, is you start new conversations and it's 6 or 9 months later that you're getting a contract. So if you don't have a 6 to 9 month window when you're starting, you need some kind of financial plan to buffer yourself during that time. Yeah. But don't give up for 9 to 12 months and say this isn't working, because nothing happens really, really quickly.
Yeah. What's the mindset like when you are going from that corporate job to the vast emptiness that is entrepreneurship?
Well, from in the actual role, it was pretty easy jump because I had enough of a network that was interested in working with me when they found out I left corporate. So that was a little bit easier. Yep. But that first year when you're not making a lot of money and you're on your own, I didn't have an admin, I didn't have anybody then, it's an enormous learning curve, right? I had never, with all the executive experience and my MBA and all these things, I didn't have ever learn how to, file GST online. And I didn't know, how do I write a contract for a client? These are all things that I hadn't experienced. So, okay, well, where do I find a lawyer to help me have appropriate contracts? How do I get QuickBooks? All of these little things you have to learn. But I do feel like after that first year, you've really seen almost everything, and the amount of time you're spending just getting your business off the ground, all those little operational pieces, just sort of poof, it's gone. And now you have your templates and you have your systems and you have your, your computer and your accounts and your website and all of those things that are such a huge time investment in the first year.
Yeah. I can remember the GST conversation of, hey, Dan, we need to talk about your GST. Well, that's great. Just write it off. Dan, you can't write off GST. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
I wish someone would have told me that for a few years.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is fun now.
Yeah.
Where do you think that influence came from? Where did you always feel like this entrepreneurial bug early on? Is it in family? Were you around people like that? Like, where do you think it came from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Skipped a generation, I think. So my grandfather ran a company. He ran a construction company in Winnipeg for a long time. But his story is interesting. My grandparents and my mom, when she was very young, came to Canada as refugees from Hungary. And I think are you Hungarian too? I noticed the last name. Yeah,
I'm the Smith of Hungary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they came from Hungary, and my grandfather had 8th or 9th grade education and no English and $10 in his pocket and a suitcase and a baby, and had to figure it out, and, got a shovel and just started digging up people's yards and things like that, and slowly built it up into sort of a small construction empire. Went bankrupt, came back, and, a real story, right? Lots of ups and lots of downs. And at the end of the day, it was a lifetime of sort of watching him go, nobody's going to tell you that you can't. You just got to figure it out. And if you work hard, it'll work out. And I thought, boy, by the time I was around, he was doing very well. I come from, a fairly privileged upbringing. And like, if he can do it with no English and $10 and no experience, no education, like, I don't really have any good excuses. So just spent a long time ignoring people that were like, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to quit your corporate job? This is so comfortable. What if nobody wants to buy it?
Yeah.
All of that considered, though, I also can't ignore the fact that I had a really great fallback plan, right? When I had a pharmacy degree, I still hold my pharmacist license, and my knowledge is maybe a little bit slipping, but if I needed to, I could brush back up and jump back into practice. So that's not a safety net that everyone has going into entrepreneurship. Yeah. Even when we weren't making a lot of money in the first year, if we wanted to go to, whatever, Mexico, I can just pick up shifts for a couple weekends. And that was a bit of a luxury that I think not all entrepreneurs have. Yeah. That safety net and comfort, just anytime you want to go make money in a different way. But I didn't really need it. But it gave me the confidence, I think, to take the dive a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also something that up and comers can also take a look at when they're trying to plan something, as far as like, okay, I know I want to start my own thing, but I need to learn, I need to get experience, what can I do that would kind of produce that same kind of safety net when I do jump on my own, that gives me the freedom to do that, but also a little bit of security. Yeah. I did not do that. Totally different. I'm the jump off a cliff with nothing.
I love it. And it worked out well.
I could not go back to the fire department. They closed the door and said, "You're done. Good riddance. We have someone new starting tomorrow." So, you started the business. How have your, like, the direction that you were going, any goals or passions, or has your focus shifted at all, or has it always been in one direction?
For sure, it has shifted. So, like, the first shift was moving beyond pharmacy to other healthcare fields. That was for sure the biggest first shift. The second shift is probably speaking. So I'd always been comfortable in front of a crowd. I've done lots of presentations and things like that in my other jobs, but never thought I would be a keynote speaker at, hundreds of people, thousands of people. That was certainly not part of the plan. It happened a bit by accident, and that has really gotten wildly busy. And I like it, but actually the truth, I'll admit this, I don't care what people think anymore, but the truth is the speaking isn't the part that's really fun for me. The part that's really fun for me is traveling and meeting a lot of new people at all these different conferences. Yeah. And to do that, I have to speak. And also the prep for the speaking. So when you're doing a keynote, it's a good week at least of just, reading books and curling up with a cup of tea by the fire and writing and thinking and exploring all these different ideas. And that's the part that I really, really enjoy. And then the trade-off is I have to get on a stage in front of 800 people and do a talk, but they go well. And I think I've gotten decent at it. So I don't mind that. So that was a big shift. And it started with people asking me here and there. And now it's become like a real income earner or income generator part of the business. So that was the second shift. And now the third shift is we're growing the business in a bit of a different way. And I've gotten to the point where I'm nearly at capacity, often at capacity myself, right? There's only one of me with this particular experience, but I do have a team, and I'm learning that there's a lot of opportunity to take a lot of administrative tasks away from healthcare owners too. So, you take an average pharmacy, for example, you've got pharmacists, maybe a cashier, some assistants or a technician in the pharmacy, but they don't have like reception or administrators of any kind. And the people who work in those practices are just very, very busy. It's highly female dominated. So lots of them are moms, young families, and they're also practicing healthcare providers. So they don't have almost any time sitting in their office doing paperwork and things like that. So I've actually started hiring an admin team, and we're going to continue to grow that over time. And that team is made up of moms. So the plan is actually, how do we sort of everyone wins in this situation except for me. I've got to figure that part out still. But the clients have someone they can trust and go to do a lot of their administrative work.
Okay.
And then the people that I'm employing are getting this, opportunity that's still really hard for moms to find. So it's very flexible work. They can either work from home, or now we have an office that they can choose to come to if they want to. They can work whatever hours they want. I'm the farthest thing from a micromanager, and I hire them for skill, not for experience. So, and person, you can't train personality. You can train for skill, you can't train personality. So, I've one amazing person on my team who keeps us so organized. Couldn't have done any of this without her. But she didn't work for a few years. She stayed home with her kids, and probably never would have applied for a job like this. And convinced her to work with me, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to our company. And then our newer hire, kind of the same story, worked in a totally different industry, never worked in anything like this, but she has a unicorn personality. She can talk to anyone. Everybody loves her. Waitresses remember her at different restaurants we go to. It's insane. And so she's had a big learning curve, learning how to work in our business, but she does client relations, and she travels, and she talks to people and has meetings, and it's impossible not to love her. And so, but same thing, right? She's a mom. She's got 2 young kids. She needs a lot of flexibility in her life. And so it's, how do we create these employment opportunities for moms that pay really well, have a ton of flexibility, give them benefits, give them the chance to travel that they wouldn't find anywhere else, while also helping our clients.
Yeah. Keynote speaking.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first one.
Oh my goodness. What was the first one? I don't even know if I can remember what the first one was.
If we can't
I don't even remember what the first one was.
How about the first one that you can remember?
Okay.
As being like, this might be a thing.
Mm-hmm. So it really started blowing up a bit during COVID, I would say. So I got to get pretty comfy with it virtually, because all the events had moved online. And the nice thing about speaking virtually is you can have all of your notes in front of you, right? So I learned a lot about intonation and, storytelling and things like this throughout COVID, and was able to get really comfortable with that on my computer presenting virtually. It was definitely harder when everything started going back in person, and you had to learn, how do you walk around on a stage so you're not standing still, but also not move your body so much that it's distracting, and where do you look, and how do you make sure you've memorized an app? Yes. And that's I could talk all day just about what to do with your hands. But yeah, it was a whole different experience starting to do it on stages. I'd done lots of talks at like podiums. You still have your notes out, and you're standing there and the mic's attached, but then you get to big conferences where there's 700 or 800 people, and you have a huge stage, and you can't see anyone, and you've got the spotlights, and the way that I wrote the speeches changed. The way that I practiced them had to change. The way that I cued myself, I got really creative with, the images I would choose to put on the slides. I'm not text heavy, so on the presentation.
Yep.
So lots of carefully crafted visuals, and careful about where I place them to try to almost cue what I'm going to say next. So that became really careful. And then you watch yourself on a recording a few times and go, oh my God, like that was terrible. You really have to learn how to fail better. I don't know that I ever failed at that, but how to get better, how to learn and continuously grow through it. But I've never been shy on a stage. It's actually, I joke about it a little bit because I've always been a bit of a troublemaker. And for the first half of my career, I feel like people told me to sit down and shut up a lot. And now they're like, here's a bunch of money. Please stand in front of this microphone and talk to everyone. And I don't hold back because I don't report to anyone and I can say what I want. And I think that's what people enjoy is just a very authentic perspective, often saying things that other people are maybe a little too hesitant to say out loud, or they're affiliated with a certain organization, or they're negotiating for a certain organization and they can't speak quite as candidly.
Yeah, they've got a kind of a gate that is in between them and the audience. And I think most people can feel that, you can kind of tell when someone's not authentic or not being themselves, I suppose. I think that's what really separates the absolute dynamos in the industry. Like I remember I was front row for Tony Robbins and Tony Robbins, so he was down and he's just leaking, sweating. And he's standing and I'm pretty sure his knees touching mine. And I'm looking up at him and I'm just like, this guy's incredible. Like there's not one iota of inauthentic energy coming off of him.
Well, that's right. And he's a great example of how speaking is so much more than like just your message too, right? You have to have a great message. You also have to be great at delivery and performance. And he's well practiced, but it doesn't seem that way, right? Like it's so authentic.
Yeah. So, think back to right as you started the business. So you had mentioned kind of the setting up everything, not necessarily having all the clients and stuff like that. Other than that, what were some of the initial big problems that you faced that were kind of unique to you?
That were unique to me? I don't know if any of the big issues I had were terribly unique to me, but I think the lessons are ones other people can take away, and probably ones that many people have said before on your podcast, I'm guessing. Like I waited way too long to get help. I should have much earlier.
So you mentioned coaches, right?
So I had coaches. So I had a good idea of what I was doing, but I was, because we weren't making a ton of money in the first year, I was really hesitant to invest in other people to help me. So I spent way too much of my own time doing things that were like that anybody else could have done, instead of focusing on the things that were really my particular value added kind of proposition.
You have so much time at the start, right? Less money.
Yeah.
So that's generally the trade-off. Like, I've got time. I should do it anyways. But that's a tough trade-off, especially when there's...
Yeah. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. So there's the piece around giving up control, right? And I remember like little examples, like I stopped making my own decks for presentations. So now it's, wonderful. But when I first started, I used to spend so much time just making sure they looked perfect, and should the font be a little bit bigger, and should I pick this picture or not, and hours, trying to make it perfect. And then switch to now our system is I word dump things into a Word document and hand it over, and it just comes back beautiful, better than I would have done anyways. But being able to give up some of that control and a little bit of that creativity and trust someone else was harder than I'd like to admit. But it's so much better than I would do anyways. I'm not a creative. I'm not a visual person. I'm very much a reader and a learner, and giving up those pieces was hard, but so worth it. I wish I could go back and do it earlier.
Yeah. Do you guys do anything on the marketing side for companies?
Yeah. So one of the people I have working for me is doing social media for some healthcare providers. So we're just starting to get into that now. We've always done a bit around marketing plans. So from the consulting side, what do you need to do? It's a bit interesting in healthcare because in regulated fields, you can't do what all the marketing books tell you should do all the time. You have to be really careful to fall in line with advertising regulations in your particular field and then also in your particular province. So like, for example, if you're running say you're a sports medicine doctor, the language that you use, you can never use anything that suggests you're better or the best or special in any way, anywhere, any of your marketing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's considered unprofessional. And so the regulatory bodies will actually slap your wrists for something like that. Yeah. So we've had situations where we've had people, use marketing consultants and then pay money for signs and things go up or things get mailed out and then they get in trouble and they have to pull it and they've invested and they're
right. Yeah.
That's a problem.
But they can advertise 2 shoulder surgeries for the price of 1.
That'll depend on the province and the profession.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of them, you have to have very consistent fees. You can't discount unless you discount for everyone. And anything that's publicly funded, usually your agreement with the province that's paying says the province gets the lowest price. So essentially, if you were to discount, like I'll give you a really simple example. So if you run a pharmacy and you charge a fee, and then you say, okay, the receptionists at the business next door, or all the employees at the business next door, I'm going to give them half the fee because they're next door and they're great. If you do that and you get caught by the province will say, actually, your lowest fee is that half price fee you were giving. And so all of the things that you've billed to us, we're allowed to reduce down to half price. So the way the contracts are written with the province, nobody reads the fine print, right? If you read the fine print, it says that you have to give them the best fee.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, it varies by profession, it varies by province, but there are a lot of rules in the fine print like that a lot of people don't know about. And so you have to be really careful to make sure that you're on side or you're at risking an audit from the province, which is not a good time.
Is there a huge leap from, we'll call it modalities, but from say dentists to doctors to is there a lot of differences between them or are they all kind of regulated the same way? Yeah, as far as marketing.
Yeah, they're all very similar. I would say some are stricter than others.
Like physiotherapists wouldn't have this.
I can give you a physiotherapy example. So one of that, which wouldn't be unique to physio, it just happened to happen in a physiotherapy. So I have a physiotherapist had hired a marketing consultant or a growth consultant of some kind, and they had suggested stealth marketing. So for people that are listening that don't know what stealth marketing is, it's basically like looking at the history of a client and then marketing something specific to their history, right? And now digital world is doing a lot of that. And so they did that. They had their emails from emailing invoices to them after their appointments. They could pull reports to say, this is how many people have had, massages or knee surgeries or whatever here. And the problem in healthcare is that you are not actually allowed to use their personal information for anything other than communicating about the treatment that they had. Okay. So if you start marketing to them using their email address, even though you have it and they gave it to you, that's not allowed. So it's these little nuances here and there that become really challenging. And if any healthcare provider just sat down and read 10 marketing books that they bought and they tried to roll those things out, there's probably 3 things in there that they're going to be a bit questionable. Whether they get caught or not is a whole nother story, but
it's fair.
It's also a fairly competitive marketplace. So people that do know the rules like to rat out other people that aren't following the rules. And then that starts getting messy, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the complaints the colleges get are from other members. Yeah, which is gross and sad. Like we're all on the same team, but this is the reality.
I had one coach tell me, don't litigate, just innovate.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Stop complaining about other people. Just if they're copying your shit, just create new shit.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So in comparison to the initial setup and the obstacles and stuff that you were dealing with, what's the hardest part of your role right now?
The hardest part of my role right now, couple of things. I think one, I am hard to clone. It's such a niche business with such a specific set of skills. It's really hard to find more people that do what I do to come on and grow more. So the growth has to be in areas that don't require more of my time. So that's a challenge we're looking
setting
at.
Up processes to try and duplicate whatever's duplicatable.
Exactly. So building a lot of carefully crafted systems and like questionnaires and surveys and things that other people can follow to at least take a portion of it off of my plate.
Yeah.
Digitizing is certainly something that we have a lot more opportunity to do. I do a lot of on-site assessments for businesses, which require me to fly to places and then tour around and shadow the team for a day or two and then provide a lot of feedback. If we could find a way to do that virtually better, that would be great. But it would come with a lot of other, again, complicated things because of what healthcare is. So they can't just walk around with a camera and show me everything, because that file might have patient names or patients or other things that aren't allowed to be shared unless they're through very specific, secure,
that's right,
ways, and it can't be stored on servers that aren't in Canada. And it's there's just all kinds of little pieces that I haven't figured out yet. I'm certainly not a techie person. I got Facebook like last year because I wanted to shop on Marketplace and have never had it before. So I'm an old soul a little bit and am reluctantly learning digitization. But
there's a thing the kids have now called TikTok.
I know, right? I'm not on there.
Even.
No, haven't touched it.
Right,
but yeah, it's again, though, I'm learning when I need to digitize, I'm much better off finding someone to help me do that than to try to figure it out on my own. Yeah, so that's for sure one of the obstacles is growing. And the other obstacle is saying no. I'm still... I want to help so many people, but I can't always say yes, and can't always travel when they want me to travel, and I can't always, some people have budgetary tolerances that are just not going to cut it, and I have to say no. And I'll make exceptions when I can, or if it's something I'm really passionate about, but that's becoming more often and really having to learn. It was funny, right? It's a different problem. When you start out, you have to say yes to everything, even if you don't want to do it. And then when you get further along, you have to really learn how to evaluate and say no to things, both for time and capacity, but also just to stay really true to your own values and the things that you like and care about, and to save your time for the things that are more important than work.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Time, focus, energy, like all of that is just stuff that is not thought of at the start. Like you're just clinging on to anything possible, working as many hours as you need to.
Yeah.
So now where do most of your clients come from, and how are you guys attracting new ones?
So I'd say two places. One is word of mouth. So we've done very little traditional marketing. We've never needed to. So I'd say most clients come because they know someone else who's working with us and they want to become a client. And the second source is from all the speaking engagements. So getting in front of a group is a really great way. And it takes a bit of a mindset shift too. You go speak to 300 people and say, 3 of them reach out to you after. You might say, well, only 1% are interested. That wasn't worth my time. But 3 reach out, 1 of them signs, and you're looking at a $50,000 contract, right? And so trying to shift your mindset of what does success actually look like, and what kind of conversion or turnover do we need to be a successful business?
Yeah.
That's important to do too. But yeah, so conferences and speaking engagements, I tend to have many people reach out after a talk, and then word of mouth through networks. Mm-hmm.
So understanding your numbers and the kind of funnel that is people are coming through, understanding your conversion rate at each different phase, very important.
Oh yeah. And internally doing some of the tracking, right? Figuring out what's working and being really intentional about doing more of that. We tend to have people come in and sometimes they'll take one of our courses. I do some courses in online teaching too. So they'll come in at sort of a lower price point. They'll do some teaching, but then we have a pretty good conversion rate of people that take that course flipping into consulting or coaching clients afterwards. Yep. So we've learned, it's a lot harder to go sell a $50,000 consulting contract than it is to sell an $1,800 course. Yep. And then they love the course so much that some of them will become consulting clients. So definitely thinking about that funnel and how you can do it. Teaching the courses were really fun for me when I started. I loved building them, but now we've been doing the same course. This is, I think, going to be our 10th or 11th time next time. And it's fun for me to meet new people, but regurgitating the same content for the 11th time is less fun. But you have to go, okay, well, this is still a really great funnel for my business. It's super valuable to the people that are taking it. So you've got to kind of truck through and keep doing it.
Yeah. Did you ever do webinars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So most of what we do is for private groups. So people hire us and we do them, but we do a few open registration things. So one of them is we have run a virtual series, 10 weeks virtually, 2 hours a week, called The Healthy Business, sort of like a mini MBA type of thing for healthcare practice owners, multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
So we'll do a week on strategy, a week on leading self, a week on sustainability, a week on project management, that kind of thing. And 10 different topics over 10 weeks.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Talk to me about leadership. So you mentioned there's a difference between leadership and management. Take me through that, as well as how this reflects, or how you've noticed just how you've been able to use that within your business.
So in short, management is sort of being really good at organizing, operations. So those day-to-day tasks, telling people what to do, building systems, tracking, those kind of things. Leadership is more about, how do you bring the right people together to solve big problems, tackle important opportunities. It doesn't mean you need to know what to do. It means you need to know how to get good ideas to come out of a group of people. It means recognizing that you actually don't have all of the answers. And I think the other thing that's interesting is you can lead from any seat, right? You don't have to be in a formal position of authority. You don't need to own a business. Anybody can lead and use those leadership skills. And I think people tend to fall either to being naturally really great managers or really great leaders. And whichever way, if you're really lucky, you get a bit of both. But whichever way you fall, you have to become really honest with yourself about where you are. And then you need to be really intentional about learning and applying strategies to try to even yourself out, right? So, I certainly was not a natural leader. I've been in lots of leadership roles. I think I'm considered a leader now in our industry for sure. But like going back to when I was 24, walking into a Shoppers Drug Mart franchise, pretending I knew what I was doing. Like I remember, it's embarrassing. The first month maybe I was there, one of the staff members had like a picture of her kids on the desk, but it was a desk that was shared. Like everybody worked in those spaces. And I remember it's like, I don't want to look at your kids. And I just took it down and put it in her mailbox and, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, this is like a shared space. We don't need all this clutter.
Yeah.
And, that was the manager in me with no leadership skills, and had to learn very quickly that, employee engagement matters and morale matters, and including other people in decisions matter.
Yeah.
And learning the skills to do that, to manage conflict, to lead change, to do all of those pieces. You can have great ideas, but very few successful endeavors in history have been done by one person. And if you don't hone in your leadership skills, you're never going to get where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, communicating a vision and convincing people to be part of that vision, a very big difference.
Mm-hmm. And again, those are all the skills nobody ever teaches you in most industries programs, right? They teach you trade-specific skills, in my case, clinical skills, but they don't teach you how to be a good communicator. They don't teach you how to manage change. They don't teach you how to negotiate. Yeah. You're thrown to the wolves and you fail a lot and learn the hard way.
I will throw this one out there though. There's a lot of people who can't lead themselves.
Yeah.
Though, and so
those people need a coach.
Those people need a lot.
Yeah.
Starting with being able to take responsibility for their own results and their own actions.
And I think one of the most important questions those people can ask themselves are, what assumptions am I making right now? People assume they know more than they do. People assume there are things holding them back that aren't really there. People assume things will play out a certain way, but they don't know until they try. We tell ourselves a lot of stories all the time.
Oh, that's where I was going with that.
And so I'm in my coaching practice, I'm very, very careful to check people's assumptions and find out what stories are we telling ourselves and how do we know if they're true and how do we find out. And it's amazing how quickly you can get people to move forward, stop holding themselves back once you use the right framing. Yeah.
When I understood the power of the stories we tell ourselves, I remember because it can be used to in a very negative way, right, holding us back or just leaving us in limbo. But we can also shape our direction, right? And our minds will make anything we tell ourselves. And I remember I didn't get in trouble, but I remember telling my wife, because I was so used to telling myself, well, change your story, right? If none of these things are going to get me what I want, I have to change my story. I have to come up with a new story. And I remember my wife being like, just change your story, honey. Oh boy, I was so annoyed about something, and it just caught me there. I was like, yeah, you got me there.
It's so powerful though, like both in business, but even in personal lives. And this particular example probably hits home with a lot of women, but certainly not exclusive to them. But I have one of my best friends is a psychotherapist. And so I've got, I have some luck of having learned all of her little tidbits over time, right? One of the most powerful questions she ever asked me was, who told you you had to do that? And I think the first time she called me out on it, I had said something about, I don't know, being tired and having all this to do, but I had a mountain of laundry in my living room. And I just said, like, I need to deal with this. She said, well, who told you had to put your laundry away today? And I thought, like, nobody. And now she just sort of lives like that little angel on your shoulder. I just hear her in the back of my head all the time going, well, who told you had to do that? Who told you had to cook a perfect meal for your family? Who told you, you had to go to that conference? Who told you can't just say, not tonight, I'm going to watch a movie.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the old me, the perfectionist, the overachiever in me would, sit down on a Wednesday night. And if I were to watch a movie on a Wednesday night, I would have this hovering voice in the back of my head going like, well, what if people find out? And now I'm going like, no, I'm allowed to do those things too.
Yeah. The not caring what people think is a big one. And I think that's really hard to do when you're still inside your own head, when you still haven't straightened out who you are, your own thoughts, how you feel about yourself. Do you love yourself? Like, there's so many things that a lot of people haven't figured out. And that makes, I remember doing real estate coaching.
Yeah.
And 90% of it was a therapy session.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You had 20 calls to make and you didn't make those 20 calls. So why didn't you make the 20 calls? It's like, well, my wife did this, or my kids are doing this, or, these things happen. And we'd have to dive into excuses and ownership and responsibility. It was all that. You mentioned that things work in both business and in life or people's life. One thing that always stuck with me is, I don't remember who said it. It was probably Gary Vaynerchuk or somebody of that nature who said, like, there is no business ethics. There is only ethics. So like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you are in life is how you're going to be in business. How you're in business is how you're going to be in life. So, there's a lot of things that people have to figure out. I never understood a value-based company. Companies can't have values. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But then realizing that people run companies and people start companies and then it wasn't until I figured out my values to be able to run my company with that and make sure and instill my values within the company. And okay, this is how we're going to run it. And look at that, clarity, clarity creates a lot of confidence.
Yeah. I find too, if you really operate your business and your life with unapologetic authenticity, that part of you that was worried what other people will think actually presents itself as other people feeling like you're giving them permission to be themselves too.
Yeah,
the number of times people have come up to me after going like, you said all the things that I was thinking but would never say out loud. And now I feel like I can. We're different versions of that same story. It's people have, been subject to societal norms and societal stereotypes and all of these expectations that we were exposed to and socialized to. Are harmful, and it takes a long time for people to realize, like, I actually am pretty good just the way I am. And this constant battle to be somebody that I'm not, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in love, whether it's in skills, passions, interests, whatever it is, body types, like trying to be someone that you're not will always be a losing game. And as soon as you really just embrace that unapologetic authenticity, you'll fall into something that is just perfect for you.
Yeah.
And anybody who doesn't like it, like they can screw off, because at the end of the day, the only person you're accountable to is your future self. And if you can make decisions today that future self will thank you for, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah. I've had that conversation with several people. And I think that the thing that comes up is where I think people, I'm sure myself included, have got messed up in that is when you're not being honest with yourself about who you are or what you want, or aren't clear about stuff. So it's really easy to say like, this is me, take it or leave it. Or like, I'm going to do this because that's who I am. When really it may not be, you just haven't put in the work to figure out exactly who you are. So that, you know, a lot of people just like rest on this like bullshit, we'll call it almost laziness, but just not putting in the work to figure out exactly what they want and who they are.
Or they didn't even know that was a real option.
That's right.
You know, the number of times I talk to people about their business, for example, and they go like, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And I say, well, but what do you want to do? And they're like, well, what does that matter? You know, and it does matter. It matters what you will, you know, what lights a fire in your belly. What do you care about?
Yeah.
Like I use this example all the time, but when I was still working in a pharmacy, you know, if you're a pharmacy owner, you want a lot of diabetic patients. They are very good for business. They're lifelong, they're chronic disease. You have a lot of opportunity to help them, but they make you a lot of money in a healthcare business. Okay. And I hated diabetes. Like I hated when I had to counsel diabetic patients. It was my least favorite thing. But you throw me like someone struggling with, a person struggling with addiction. You throw me a postpartum depression mom. You throw me a lot of these other clinical categories, and I'm in my zone. I love it. I'm having a lot of fun. You throw me a new insulin start diabetic patient. I'm like, oh, is it time to go home yet? This is terrible. So you have to get out of this space where you feel like, well, because I'm a pharmacist, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I should care about this, or there's this huge need. You're never going to be great at anything if you hate it. And the days are going to feel so long. Yeah. So until you can get to that point where you really get to know yourself and allow yourself to be yourself, it's going to be a long road.
So in knowing yourself, where have you found that you've had the biggest, we'll call it return on investment, when you focus on that one thing? What is that one thing?
Yeah. So the one thing I would say is realizing that other people are allowed to be disappointed, and that is not my problem. So I can make decisions. You do not need to like them. I can set boundaries. You don't need to like them. You have to respect them, but you don't have to like them. And that's a you problem, not a me problem. And getting past that people pleaser piece has been totally life-changing. If you spend your life trying to control other people's emotions, you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah. I like that as a tattoo. It's a you problem.
It's a you problem. Yeah. And my kids tell me that all the time now. 2 11-year-old girls, and they tell me often that's a you problem, Mom.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. They really turned that one around you.
Yeah. Backfired a little bit.
Do you notice when new clients come in or existing clients, do you find that there's any misconceptions that are kind of specific to what you guys do?
So, a couple things. So the first and short one is sometimes people think we consult on healthcare, but we don't. We consult in healthcare on business and leadership and strategy.
Right.
So we field a lot of those and just don't ask me clinical questions ever anymore. So there's that, the business of healthcare. And I'd say the second thing is they come to me with something they think is the problem, and it takes a bit of time to figure out what the real problem is. So they don't know what they don't know. And I kind of think it's akin to, going to see a physician. You go in, you say, my knee hurts, I need something for the pain. And a good physician will go, okay, well, why is your knee hurting? Do you have arthritis or there are underlying conditions? Are you sitting in poor ergonomics in your office?
Have a knife sticking out of your
that's
knee.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's they come to me with symptoms, and I often have to carefully navigate how do we figure out what's causing the symptoms instead of giving you a Band-Aid.
Right.
But the great thing is most people buy into that. And it really is a good example of my overall business and consulting philosophy, which is I am here to help you be successful, but I will be successful when you don't need me anymore. Whereas a lot of other professionals, I think they want to kind of be in your corner forever. They want to, and they have to, your accountant needs to be your accountant forever. You're never going to become your own accountant, and so on. But in my case, it's, how do we build you those systems and those skills and those internal abilities, like making good decisions and living through your values and all of those things so that you don't need me anymore. And when we get there, then I've been successful.
Yeah. Teach a man to fish.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Winnipeg. Would your business be any different if you were based anywhere else? Now, I know that things have become very, very digital, but you're still flying out. You still have to go there. Do people treat you differently because you're from Winnipeg? Do you think it's a pro? Do you think it's a con? How does being based in Winnipeg affect you?
I feel like people who are based in the prairies find it very refreshing to work with someone from the prairies. I find that people that are from outside of the prairies, you need to convince them a little bit more that you're worth it.
Business is the same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think there are definitely geographical nuances that you need to navigate that are really different. And so it's taken time to learn those on my end. Things that work here may not work somewhere else. The books of businesses look very different in a place like Toronto compared to rural Saskatchewan. The ways you can invest your money, the amount of profit you're actually making in a business that does the same thing in the same volume is very, very different. So your ability to recruit and retain is very different. Your strategies need to be different. So I think it's benefited me in some ways. I think it's been a challenge in others. Going online has certainly helped. The time zones are really nice in Winnipeg. For my own personal work life harmony, if I can work with people on the East Coast and the West Coast and fit it into my day pretty nicely. Whereas if I was based on either coast, your market changes a little bit unless you want to work 24/7.
Yeah.
But really, it's been a blessing. I think I love Winnipeg. I do feel like I spend way too much time convincing people why Winnipeg is such a great place to live and work. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of opportunity here. I don't know that my business would have taken off this well anywhere else because Winnipeg is, that 1 degree of separation. People always joke about Kevin Bacon and his 6 degrees. I think Winnipeg is 1 degree of separation if you try hard enough. And that's really been beneficial. Networks are everything when you're starting out. So that was very beneficial and maybe wouldn't have been as great in other spaces. Yeah. I would love to grow more in Winnipeg, though. I feel like a large percentage of our growth has been out of province just by nature of those, few people from out of province telling their friends who are out of province, telling their friends who are out of province. And I think we could grow more capacity inside of Winnipeg than we can continue to grow outside of Winnipeg. Yeah.
When someone's coming to Winnipeg, what are your go-tos? What are you have to see this, you have to do this. There are things that you absolutely love about the city. Yes. And then I'm going to hit you with the other side of what do you dislike about Winnipeg?
Oh, that one's going to be hard. I love Winnipeg. I'm such an advocate for this city. Well, the first thing I love is that it's affordability. I tell people they should move to Winnipeg all of the time. I have one person that I was talking to recently who lives in Waterloo, and they said, well, my parents are in Toronto, and so I could never move to Winnipeg because I still see my parents. We have a monthly dinner on the first Sunday of the month. And I said, you could live in Winnipeg, fly there for your Sunday dinner once a month and still have more money left over compared to where you're living now. But no, great place to live. My favorite things in the city. So I'm a foodie. And I think one of the things that I talk often about Winnipeg is that we have the best food scene in the country. All kinds of amazing places. My favorite is Theta's Thai. It's number one favorite in the city. Got to get the crab wontons.
Come on.
Ugh.
Where is that?
It's on Donald, kind of behind where the Fix was before you go over the bridge after Broadway.
Yeah.
It's the best. Hands down, best restaurant in the city. That's my favorite. Close second would probably be, there's so many good ones. Viva on Sargent, Vietnamese food, also my favorite. I love it there. I love East India Company for quick lunch. Mm-hmm. It's really good. But you get so much variety. So I always tell people if you come here, you need to eat and bring stretchy pants. So we're going to go eat.
It's fair.
Raw almond. Have you been?
Oh, yes.
It's so wonderful. I love it. I'm going to go every year.
Yeah. Very different.
Yeah. Very unique, right? So I love that. In terms of things to do, we have the best arts and culture scene in the country. I always say, Winnipeg has everything a big city has, but it's not a big city.
Right.
You've got the ballet, you've got the symphony, you've got all the festivals, Country Fest, Folk Fest, Folklorama, all of the things.
Yeah.
Festival. Love it.
We do all the things.
We do all the things. And you got to take it in.
Yeah. It sucks when you miss it.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, that's right. This was on last weekend and I had no idea because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say food and arts and culture. And there's something for everyone.
Yeah. Very nice. Mm-hmm. Dislikes. Mm-hmm. Anything you dislike?
Lack of better transit. I'm a car driver, but I wish I didn't need to. When I go to other big cities and I use all of the amazing public transit, I am in absolute awe and then infuriated with how awful ours is. So
anyone who has ever traveled to any large metropolitan, we got back from Barcelona, and we got the family pass, and we had we had a baby at the time and a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. We were pushing our our baby around, and the metro was just incredible. Yeah, incredible.
Absolutely. So easy. And I mean, that's Europe too. The trains and everything are so fabulous. And the other thing I just like about Winnipeg that nobody has any control over is it's just so far to go anywhere else. I have clients that are, in BC and they're like, oh, we're just, hopping over to Banff for the weekend, or, we're going to go up to Whistler. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And here it's like, okay, I will take an entire day to drive to Minneapolis or a day and a half to go to Edmonton. And, that's frustrating. There's not a lot of great places, but there's a few, right? There's a few.
Yeah. No. You have twins.
Yeah.
And you have another one?
Yeah. So I have identical twin girls that are 11.
Okay.
And I have a son that just turned 8.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
How on earth? So we call the business owner married with children, the trifecta of insanity. How is it that you manage it? Some people will call it work-life balance. I just call it balance.
Yeah.
How is it something that you've had to some time to shape, or does it just kind of come naturally to you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So it's very busy. I have 3 kids, 2 cats, and I just got a puppy. So I'm a bit of a masochist. That's been very interesting.
I've been pushing off the dog for so long.
The kids begged and I bailed, and now it's my dog.
Yeah,
and
that's what usually happens.
Yeah. How do I manage it all? Well, first I have a astronomically supportive husband who I almost live in a 1960s reverse household. So he does almost everything in the house. So I'm very lucky about that. The kids help out when they can, but it requires reminding and nudging, but they help. I have a cleaner. I think everybody should. It was the best first investment I ever made. I would give up everything that I pay for, every bill, my cell phone, anything before I'd give up my house cleaner. It's an absolute game changer, for sure. So that's really helpful. And then I'm just a really anal planner. So my calendar is terrifying, I think, to most people, but I have to find spaces and ways to take cognitive energy out of those mundane tasks of running a household. So, for example, my calendar reminder will go off once every 3 months to tell me to change my furnace filter because I'm never going to remember on my own, So the calendar reminder goes off, you go on Amazon, you order it, when it shows up on the step, you put it in, and you're not having to find space or time to think about those things. Same thing with dentist appointments, whatever else it might be, library day for the kids at school, hot lunch, everything is in the calendar.
Then you don't have to take the time to fix the furnace after it's broken because you didn't fix it.
That's exactly right. So it's putting it's the same as business. You put the systems in place. We lean managed our household. This is the real nerd in me coming out. But things like we have a 2-story house. Nobody likes wearing socks. And so, you're at the front door, you're ready to go, and then nobody has socks. And so we have a basket of socks by the front door. It's the little things when you notice something goes wrong and you're going, ugh, like this again, it's not an opportunity for you to just go fix it in the moment and move on. It's really thinking both in business and in life, like what system broke here and how do we fix it? So it's things like having a basket of socks near the front door it changes the game. So it's putting those management, leadership, operational practices in place at home too that really keeps us chugging along.
Outside of your calendar, are you a daily routine?
No. I wish I was that person a little bit, but not at all. I think that's what I hated actually about working in a corporation was sometimes I just don't feel like it. Like if I want to have a nap, I'm going to go have a nap. If I'm, not hungry, I'm not going to eat. If I'm, want to sleep in one day, I'm going to sleep in. If I have a friend who's in town and we want to go for lunch, we go for lunch. But sometimes that means that, I'm working on a Sunday night. And I actually love that. I love sometimes just pouring myself a glass of wine and sitting down with my laptop at 8:00 at night. And sometimes I have my best focus time there. And I find when I try to force a routine on myself, it actually impedes me. So I will add though that I'm a procrastinator. So I hate leaving things till the last minute. I'm the furthest thing from a procrastinator. So if your personality is not someone that has a lot of self-discipline to make sure things are getting done, then that's not a great strategy for you. Routine's important. I found the hardest part about having kids actually was they need routine and I hate routine.
Right with it.
Yeah. And so having to force a routine on myself to try to make sure that they could thrive is difficult.
My kids have ruined my routine.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Ruined. I've got 11-month at home. 11. And he just legitimately, he came into this world and said, Dad, fuck your routine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm here now.
I bet. I bet.
So it's been interesting. But that's very interesting because I don't know if I'd be a procrastinator. There's definitely things that I procrastinate about. Like I don't need things. I don't need to have things done. But I thrive under routine. Yeah. And so that's interesting that you mentioned that.
It's not so much that I need to have it done. It's that I don't like to have things hovering. It's little thing in the back of your head going like, you should be doing this or you should no, I just want it off so that I can do what I want to do when I want to do it instead of feeling like I need to use that space for things I've been putting off.
Yeah. I feel that's mental energy that just drains and I have to remember it. I have to remember it. I have to remember it. So I do get that all the time. And I love getting rid of that voice.
And if you can't do it right away, then I time block for it. And then I just completely forget about it until the time pops up in my calendar 3 weeks from now to deal with it. Right.
Well played.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Not something that you would tell yourself because generally happy, successful people wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
What is some advice that you would give somebody coming up that really just doesn't know themselves yet or doesn't know which direction they want to go?
That's a good question. I think it's that you don't have to fit into a box. I think people come out of all these different programs and they really feel like, here I have to go be the stereotypical, realtor, pharmacist, restaurateur, whatever it might be, teacher. But when you come across those people that are like, I'm going to do it my way, they're really magical in all different fields. And so I hope that people can find themselves some role models, even like, follow certain people on social media that are giving you that permission to fall outside of the box and do things a bit differently. So many people just seem to think, I came out of school and this is the job that I need to do. And they don't think that they have what it takes to do it differently or to build something for themselves. But the trick or the secret is all the people that you think are doing it right, they didn't have anything either. Like they're really no different than you. They just took a jump.
Mm-hmm. Is it as hard as you thought it would be or harder?
To build a business? It's a good question. I don't really think I had any idea what I was getting into. I had no idea. I think what I had was some idea of what my life would look like, less so than what my work would look like. And I was just dead set on planning my work around my life and not my life around my work. And I like to prove people wrong. So I was a little bit motivated by people thinking this was a crazy idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like to win.
Fair. Competitive nature is a great trait for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Where you need to be careful, though, is if you're someone who always moves the goalposts. So you do also, and I'm still learning this too, like what is good enough and where do you stop? Because I'm typically the kind of person where it's like, this was great. We signed 20 new clients. Next year, let's get 30 new ones. Yeah. And then maybe we should do it. I'm going to leave here today and be like, maybe I should start a podcast. It's just at some point you need to be really comfortable with, what does success look like and how do I know when I get there? Mm-hmm. And when I'm there, give yourself permission to rest or stop. You're not trying, you don't actually have to prove yourself to the whole world. You can just build something that you love, do it in a way you love, and you don't always have to do more.
Yeah.
So if I could do more of anything right now, it would be like lying in my pool reading books, not probably building an enormous empire.
My wife was really good at reminding me to micro celebrate.
Yeah.
Celebrate some of the wins, even the big ones I wouldn't celebrate. Mm-hmm. I'd nail a new project or we'd sell a big project and I didn't feel happy. I just felt relief.
Yeah.
I felt relief from the stress and then it was very short-lived and then it was on to the next stressor. Yes. And that was like, I was like, I don't know. I can't do this. Like I can't keep this. Something's not right. Something's broken.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you don't celebrate at all.
That's right.
Celebrate anything.
Yeah.
So we've been celebrating a lot, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You had mentioned that somebody didn't know what they didn't know. Mm-hmm. So you're coming here. I didn't prep you with anything. I never do because I like authentic conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, or that, when you're driving here, you're like, maybe we'll talk about this? Is there something that I missed?
Yeah, I think on that topic of people don't know what they don't know, I think, people just need to feel like they are allowed to do discovery. So it just means ask people what you're missing. Feel free to reach out to me or to any other professional or expert in any field and just be humble. It's okay to say you don't know. We have these expectations, and especially healthcare providers have these expectations that they know everything. Mm-hmm. And at some point you just need to say, what am I missing? Like the same way you're asking it to me, I think everybody needs to ask it to others and be really open to feedback. A really, really great skill we can learn is accepting feedback from other people instead of looking for approval.
Isn't there a funny caveat on everything? Because when I think of, when you say that, I think of listen, like it matters who you're listening to as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like be careful on who you're taking feedback from.
I don't know. I would push back on that because I think be careful who you take advice from.
Right.
But feedback is a real gift. What you do with it is your own decision, right?
that's
But
fair.
gaining perspective from people who think differently from you is so valuable because it helps tell you a whole story. You only see the world from where you stand. So if you have the ability to gain feedback from people all around you, from different walks of life and different professions in different ways, but you choose what you're going to take away and do something with, but you can't, there's no other way for you to gain that perspective. And if you're in the line of work or life where your actions impact different types of people, you need to be able to form solutions and ideas that benefit people that are different than you. And the only way you'll get that is through feedback and diverse perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So I think we gather the feedback and the perspectives from as many different people as you can. This idea of like shunning out, like obviously I'm a pharmacist and pro-vaccine, the whole COVID vaccine thing was very interesting. But when I hear so many stories, I'm not even talking to them anymore. They're an anti-vaxxer, for example. I go, well, I feel like there's so much to learn. It doesn't mean you need to become someone who believes one way or the other, but there's so much to be shared, right? We're seeing so much polarization in politics right now. I think I don't need to agree with someone who's anti-abortion, but I'm curious about why do you feel like that? What is the story that you're telling? And I think that getting those answers and having those conversations will make me better at the work that I do. So I'll gather the feedback from everyone. Choose what you take as advice, though. Careful.
Very fair. Yeah. Open debate is, I don't think there's anything better.
Healthy, respectful debate.
That's right. And anyone that is secure in their beliefs should be able to discuss a topic without feeling attacked or attacking.
Yeah.
I've noticed that in myself, where if I get frustrated about something, it's because I'm not clear about it.
Yeah.
And either I get frustrated at myself, or I get frustrated that I'm in this situation and I cannot convince somebody, or that I cannot articulate this amazing idea that I know is right.
Yeah.
And it's those times where you're just so understanding of what you feel and what you think, and it doesn't matter if anyone thinks otherwise. So yeah, we've seen a ton of issues with, well, even Canadian politics and everywhere is just like the death of debate, right? I think that's why people really like Pierre Poilievre is coming out, just no notes, no anything, just let's talk about it. Vivek Ramaswamy, right? He's the very same way.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's very important. And that's just knowing things, asking questions, being curious. That's very good advice. How can we find you and follow you? But also, how do we help you in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, great question. So I'm pretty easy to find online. So my website is just amyoliver.ca.
Okay.
And Instagram is at amyoliverco. We're also on LinkedIn, but we're on Instagram more than anything else.
That's your big one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And email amy at amyoliver.ca. Really easy to remember. Any of those ways to reach out is great. Either with feedback, I welcome and invite any type of feedback, or with questions, or if you just want to connect with us and our team and have a conversation, I'm happy to do that as well. You can catch me at lots of different conferences and on the road. So we tend to post on Instagram where we're going to be. So that's
What's
again a great place. I'm speaking in Halifax and Kananaskis and Edmonton and Red Deer. I know I'm all over the country in the fall, and then away in Zambia. So the next one I think is Halifax. And then probably back in Winnipeg end of November. So to do a talk here. So keep your eyes open on Instagram to see where I am if you ever want to join a talk. Our Healthy Business registration is open for winter already. So anybody who might want to take that virtual course, it's available there. You can see details on the website for that. And how can you help me? I think it's, like I said, our entire business has been grown by word of mouth. And so if you know anybody who is working in healthcare or general wellness industries and they could use a little support or people in their corner helping them figure out what the hell they're doing, we're a great place to start for a conversation.
Fantastic. Great conversation. I think we think very alike about a lot of things. But that also leads me down to this conversation. There's no end to it,
Yeah.
right? About personal development and growth and business growth and strategy and all that. Like it's the more I know, the more I realize I don't know, and it's
Right.
and it's incredible, right? Come back anytime.
Yeah, I'd love
I'm
to.
excited to see how the growth continues, and I really appreciate the time. I know you're busy. I know we've had to reschedule.
Yes.
And so I really appreciate you coming and making the time for us.
Thank you so much for having me.